What is GDP? Yes, we hear this many times. Like the nation's GDP is increased by 1% or 2% or decreased by 3%. What it means? And people says, oh, because of GDP increase, stock market goes up or employment increases. How GDP impacts the economy of a nation? Let's see. This video presents you what is GDP and what is its importance. Demand is number one driving factor of economy. Production depends on demand. Based on production, income creates demand. So this is a cycle. This is economy cycle. So everything is related to each other. Look at this. This is a sign of good economy. Demand is increasing and the production is also increasing. So economy is looking good here. To measure the nation's economy, we use GDP, gross domestic product. GDP is an indicator to measure the nation's economy. GDP is nothing but the value of the goods and services that are produced or consumed within the nation in a given time period. Using GDP, we can understand the current progress of the country's economy compared to the previous time periods. Also, with GDP, we can compare the different countries' economies. There are three approaches to calculate GDP. The most prominent one is expenditure approach. Look at here. GDP equal to consumption plus investment plus government expense plus net exports. The summing of all these expenditures gives the value of GDP. To make you understand, I'll give you quick examples of each one here. Consumption. This includes the personal expenditures of citizens like food, rent, jewelry, gas, medical expenses, etc. Investment. These are the investment made by private firms or citizens. For example, business investment in equipment, purchase of softwares, purchase of machinery by factories, spendings of households on new houses, etc. But note here, buying financial products will not be treated as an investment and will not be counted in GDP. This is to avoid double counting from both the sides. Government expense means spendings of government. It includes salaries of public servants or new constructions, etc. etc. Net exports means gross exports of nation minus gross imports of nation. All goods and services that are exported to other nation minus all goods and services that are imported from other nation. The reason to avoid to deduct imports from GDP is to avoid the foreign supply as domestic. This value this value gives the total expenditure of a nation in a given Time period. See this example to understand how GDP will be calculated to expenditure approach for a nation. Let's take a small country of population 1000 people, and this country exports wheat and sugar, imports cotton and oil. Let's see this table. In 2015, total consumption of by people is $1 lakh, and the government spendings are $52,000, whereas investment made by private firms are $5,000. Exports of wheat and sugar is $10,000. Imports of cotton and oil $9,000. So the GDP value is, by summing up of all and deducting imports, is $1,58,000. In the same way, in 2016, the GDP is 1,82,000. See here, the GDP is increased by 15.1% in 2016 compared to 2015. The nation's economy is progressing, and the 15% hike in the economy over last year. See here, consumption increases means the production also increased. If production is there, if production is increased means demand for employees. That means employment also increases. Since production is increasing, profits also goes up. So employees get more salaries because of demand. Since profits are increasing, demands on firms stocks increases. Automatically stock market increases. In the same way, we can calculate GDP through income as well. In the prior example, we have calculated through expenditures. The same value approximately we can calculate through incomes as well. See a small example here. John and Tom both are working in the same organization, and John is earning 150k dollar, whereas Tom is earning 400k dollar. We can measure their economy by their incomes as well. But sometimes, by this approach, it's difficult to calculate GDP correctly in given period of time due to reasons like payment delays, business running in credits, etc. But roughly, both the approaches should give the same picture. And the third approach is production approach. Look at the formula here. GDP equal to the final product cost minus intermediate consumption of goods and services plus the product taxes. I'll show you a small example on this. This is a small example for calculating GDP using production approach. A farmer produced 10 kgs of wheat. He kept 1 kg with him and sold out the remaining 9 kgs to a miller at price of $2 per kg. Miller produced 8 kg of wheat flour from 9 kgs of wheat and sold out 3 kgs to householder at price of $3 and sold out remaining 5 kgs to a baker at price of $3. Baker produced cakes and fixed the price as $12 for each cake. Now see how we calculate GDP for wheat. At farmer level, he produced 10 kgs and sold out for $2 per kg. So the value of wheat is 10 into 2, $20. At miller level, he sold out 8 kgs of wheat flour at price of $3, so which is 8 into 3, 24, minus 1 for resources like salaries for staff or like staff services, minus the original price of wheat, that is minus 9 into 2, $18, which is like $5. At householder, he directly consumed the wheat flour, so there's no value addition there, so it's 0. At baker's level, he used 1 kg of wheat in one cake, and the price of the cake is $12, which is 12 into 1, 12 minus 3, which is the resources he consumed for preparing the cake, minus 6. This is for the cost of eggs and sugar, which we have already fixed as $6, plus taxes for selling, plus 3, which is equivalent to 6, and he made 5 cakes out of it. 6 into 5, which is $30. Now the GDP for wheat is 20, which is at farmer level, and the value added by miller is $5, and the value added by baker for preparing cake is $30, so total is $55. This is a little complicated approach and need to calculate value at every level. Let's move on to the next one. See this. This data is extracted from IMF World Economics Outlook, which is the real GDPs of the nations. Left side you see GDP current prices, where United States stands in the first position and China in second position. Whereas in right side, you see China is in first position, whereas United States in the second position. Also, you observe here, in India stands in seventh place in the left side, whereas in right side it gone to third position, and the difference is very huge. Here it is 2183 billion dollars, whereas GDP based on PPP valuation it is $8,027 billion. What is this? What is the difference between these two? The left one is called nominal GDP, whereas the right side is called real GDP, or often called as GDP using PPP. PPP stands for Power of Purchasing Parity. Let's see it in initially GDP will be calculated in country's local currency. It is not possible to compare with other nations' GDP because every country has its own currency. So all countries' GDPs has to be converted into a single currency. So usually that currency will be USD. So if we use the current currency exchange rate from international markets to convert GDP into US dollars is called a nominal GDP. With this, it may give sense of country buying power for imported goods, but it is not helpful to understand how poor or rich the country is. Currency rate exchanges currency rate changes by demands of international markets, which depends on imports and exports of that country. But GDP does not care what a country sells or buys in international markets. It cares what country produces or consumes domestically. For some countries, there may not be a good demand for their currency in international markets, but they may do a good production and consumption within their domestic area. In that case, nominal GDP will not give the correct picture of its economic progress. So, converting GDP using PPP, power of purchasing parity, is an attempt to correct it. Purchasing power parity looks at the cost of the standard basket of goods and services and then creates an exchange rate. For example, take a basket, add soaps, chocolates, oranges, and calculates price as per Indian market, for example. And let's say the price of the basket is 120 rupees in Indian market, and the same price of these goods with the same quantity and same quality in US is, let's say, $3. That means $3 costs 120 rupees, means 40 rupees each dollar. So the exchange rate is 40 instead of the 66 rupees as per the international market. See, for example, there is a country named Kindi whose domestic currency is Kindi's dollar. Have a look at the GDP statistics of 2014 and 2015. The GDP value in local currency of Kindi's dollar is same in 2014 and 2015. But there is a change in FX rate between USD and the Kindi dollar. So because of that, then there is a change in nominal GDP as well. And as per the PPP, the value is 8.2 and 8. So there is a little change in real GDP. See, in 2015, there is a 20% decline in nominal GDP, even though there is no change in GDP in local currency. That means the production and consumption in the Kindi's country is same in 2014 and 2015, but still nominal GDP is showing 20% decline. This is due to the currency fall of Kindi in international markets. But the purchasing power of citizen may not be impacted much. Because of the currency rate decline, it is showing the country's economic progress is gone down up to 20%, which is ideally not true. Maybe the currency of Kindi doesn't have good demand in international market, but it is producing and consuming the same goods and services in the year of 2015 and 2015 as well. So using the PPP gives a better picture of GDP, better and more accurate GDP than nominal GDP. So it's always better to compare using real GDPs with with other nations or other countries. Also note that in the previous slide, I have shown that China stands in the first position than in US. It doesn't mean that China is richer than United States. The reason is the population of China is much higher than United States. See, the population is also the major factor where you have to consider while comparing with the different GDPs with different nations. See the result of increase in GDP. It indicates the economy is in good progress, production and consumption is increasing, purchasing power of citizen also increases, unemployment decreases, people living standard goes up, GDP decreases or GDP declines, economic is going down, purchasing power of citizens also goes down, unemployment may increase because the production will, is coming down, so the unemployment may increase. Stock market also falls, interest rate goes down, money flow decreases, people living standard also may decrease. Usually when GDP decreases, when increase in imports and decrease in exports of goods and services leads to GDP decreases, and the bad resource utilization or wastage of resources may decline in production and results in GDP decrease. Increase in corruption, yes. These are corruption is also a major factor in decreasing the GDP because when black money increases, the white money decreases. So the GDP value decreases because that money will not account into the GDP. Failing of law and order, yeah, because if law and order fails, then investments will not come up or the productivity there will be an interruption for productive production, which in turns impacts on GDP. And no disaster management. If there is any disaster or any like cyclone effects or earthquake